Hey there, theater makers, and welcome back to another episode of Theater's Not Dead with Keyanna Alexander. We are talking this series about writing in a pandemic. So what does that look like? How are we staying creative? What are we being creative about? I don't know, so I'm asking guests about their experiences writing during the COVID-19 pandemic. But before we dive into our wonderful guest today, a couple of quick reminders. Make sure that you are liking and subscribing the videos and the TND YouTube channel. Did you know that we have a blog? Did you know that we have a coffee? You want to go ahead, follow us on coffee.com. That way you can keep up with said blog key thoughts and also keep up with all the shenanigans we post, because there's always some random thing that I wouldn't want to put on this show, but I want to share with the audience. So that's where you can catch up on all of the other weird, neglected type of things we have going on. Okay, everyone. Now is the time. Tamara Kissane is a Durham-based playwright, theater maker, parent, and podcaster for Artist Soapbox. In 2020, Tamara was the Piedmont Laureate and received Outstanding Contribution to the Arts from Chatham Life and Style. Recent projects include The Decoration of Love Anthology, The New Colossus, Master Builder, and several serial audio pieces in development. Currently, she's working feverishly on several audio-visual theater projects of her own, as well as helping other writers with their projects, all while social distancing and momming hard for her 2 young children. She drinks lots of coffee. Same, Tamara. Is freshly on a social media fast. Can't relate. And is investing in gratitude. So that is her intro, and now here she is.
Hi, Keyanna. Thanks so much for having me here today.
Hello, hi. I'm so excited to have you on the show. Before we dive into this remarkable conversation, I do want to let our audience know Tamara was one of the people I called on a random Sunday when I had the idea for Theater's Not Dead, and I was kind of like, how do I do the thing? So thank you so much for always being supportive of me and investing in T&D from such an early starting point.
Oh, you are so welcome. It has been really exciting for me to see how this is blossoming. And there was never any doubt that you could make an amazing product and process, and you're doing it. And it's really fun to witness.
We have a tradition here at Theater's Not Dead where we ask all of our guests how they got started in theater. So, Tamara, what is your theater origin story?
I guess there are 2 ways of answering that question. The first way is to say that I auditioned for the first time in first grade. It's kind of family lore, actually, that I asked my mother to audition for a local, like a community show. I'm not sure how I did that because I wasn't reading a newspaper on the regular. So I don't know. I don't know if that's just that story has been changed over time, but I auditioned. It was a big group audition. So everyone was in the room. My family was trying to go to the zoo that day. And so my dad told the director that I had to go first. And so, never having auditioned before, I marched up to the front of the gymnasium, sang happy birthday. We went to the zoo, and the rest was history. So I was a chorus member in the play The Littlest Angel, and I was not the littlest angel. Well, actually, I might have been the littlest angel, but I was not like in that role. So yeah, and since then I've just been kind of dabbling, I guess, in it, in fits and starts. since then. And yeah, so that's one answer to the question. And the other answer to the question, I guess, is that I feel like I am always starting in the theater, like every day, because my understanding of what I want to contribute, the work that I make, and how that I make it continues to evolve all the time. And, I never attended a conservatory program. I never got my MFA. I never worked for a big Lort theater or was in any kind of pipeline in that like big world of theater. I never went to New York City or LA to try and kind of make it. So I feel like, and there are pros and cons about that. We can talk about that if you want to. But what that means is that I am maybe not as well read, as well trained, as well connected as other people. So I'm constantly trying to kind of catch up and shore up my own experience and education. And so I always feel like I'm kind of emerging, I'm like, what do I need to learn and how can I grow my work? And every day it's new.
I love how you kind of talk about your transition into other theater making and not just acting, just because we're all multi hyphenates. If you're a good theater maker, you can't stick in one lane. You might have
Mm-hmm.
your favorite lane, but that's not the only one you exist in. I also find it's really fascinating that you never did any of the like typical pathways to theater. That's wow. What? I never knew that about you.
Yeah, yeah. So I went to Duke as an undergrad, and I actually went to Duke ready to be pre-med because I wanted to be a doctor. And there were several different times in my life that I almost went to medical school. Um, when I got to Duke, I did major in theater. And so I had some training as an undergrad there, but it's such a long and complicated story about why I didn't go all in for theater. So, I mean, some part of it was that I auditioned and I didn't get in. So, but my audition wasn't good because I didn't prepare because I was so insecure. And so, it's a combination of circumstances, money, a lot of internal stuff that I've been working on since forever. And, but I just never really jumped into it. And so what that meant for me was that a lot of it was kind of DIY and sort of making it up as I have been going along. I, for a long time, had a theater company with a good friend of mine. Her name is Cheryl Shambly. And we had a theater company called Both Hands, where we produced, wrote, acted, and directed. And it was for over a decade that we did that together. We met at Duke. And so, kind of along the way, I've been doing a little bit of thing here and doing a little bit of thing here. And as you say, the multi hyphenate life is real because when you are DIYing, a lot of that means that you need to cover a lot of different things. And also, I didn't want to choose. So I've had to choose because I've started having kids. And so the ability to do all the hyphens at all the same time, not so much.
Fair, fair. But I will say you just traded some of your hyphenates out for a different hyphenate. And that's also cool.
That's a very nice way of thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, like, psh, I'm gonna trade my hyphenates out for something else one day. I don't know what, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is totally and completely off topic. Do we remember those charm bracelets that you could get little additions on all the time?
Yeah.
What if charm bracelets were our lives and you just kind of, swapsies out some of those charms on your bracelet?
I like it very much.
All right, I don't know how, but that's going to be a 10-minute script. Someone get on that. We're calling dibs right now.
That's right.
Speaking of writing, before what we have now known as the COVID-19 pandemic started, what was your writing process like?
My writing process before COVID was, well, I was doing more things. So I guess I didn't have as much time to write. I wasn't doing a lot of theater because, like I mentioned, once I have two children now, I have a 12-year-old and a 5-year-old. And so with each child, my ability to show up in rehearsal and be a part of that process has become more limited. But I was still doing some theater. And when everything shut down, my ability to be an actor, a director, it became even more limited. So I had some more time to write. And so I guess during COVID, my ability to write in some ways kind of exploded because I had a lot more opportunity to write, meaning people were giving me opportunities to write. But also I wasn't rushing around as much. And so all of that travel time and kind of packing all the meetings and everything, they went away. And so that gave a little bit more space to write and think about what things would be like when everything opens up again. I will say that, and I don't know if this is part of your question or just something that I'm adding in, but over time, my writing process has become I'm going to say a lot less fraught and a lot more confident. And the confidence piece is not about me saying, "Oh, I am confident that I'm a good writer and I am confident that I'm making stuff," because that's not it at all, like not even a little bit. But I'm more confident about my intention with the piece, my ability to listen to what it wants to be, my ability to feel like there is an audience for it. And that's what I mean when I say my confidence has increased, and the sort of fraught feeling about like, can I do this? How do I do this? Everybody's going to hate it. I can't even think of any words, like all of that stuff that's packed into a writing process. It is still there, but because I have experienced it so many times, it's sort of like, oh, that's the familiar junk. That's a familiar junk that's like talking to me over there. And I'm just going to walk with it a little bit. It's going to be junky in the corner, but I still am going to do my writing because I'm uncomfortable, but I'm not stopped by it. And I'm able to kind of move in and do the writing because I don't have a lot of time. Like I have little bits of time. And if I spend all of my time rolling around in the muck of my doubt and my like tortured, no one's going to like my stuff, then my 15 minutes will go by and I will not have written anything. So it's really about like, I got to take the opportunity to sit down and write this stuff, no matter how much of that junky stuff is going on in my mind. I have to take the opportunity to do it or it will just go right by.
Wow. I guess why I'm so fascinated is you're expressing the lack of time that you have to write. And I have heard and received that, oh, you should be writing so much more because you have so much time because you're at your house. And I think a lot of that is that overall question for writing in the pandemic series is there more time to write now? Because it doesn't feel like I have more time to write. So thank you for touching on that. Um, Regarding content, because you've already expressed there's an audience that wants to hear whatever story you're trying to tell. So regarding content, do you find yourself gravitating to any particular sort of issues or themes now that we are in this pandemic?
Wow, that is such a great question. My experience, and I guess I'd like to frame this by saying that, you know, everyone has had a very individual experience. We are having collective trauma, but our individual experience of that, there's a huge spectrum of challenge, of sorrow, of opportunities, of suffering, of thriving. And so I want to always say that I'm speaking from my own experience, because that might be very different from other people. So as far as stories that I'm gravitating to during the pandemic, I think no matter what, for me as a writer, I'm trying to process some of the big questions that are floating around in my mind. And sometimes that's something that I'm very aware of. And sometimes that's something that I discover after I've written it, or somebody else will say, like, oh, well, you wrote this piece about this thing. And I'm like, really? Oh, really? I guess I did, actually. I know that sometimes I think that I write things that are very funny and comedic, and then realize much later that they're actually very, very sad. But somehow I had convinced myself. I'm like, I want to be happy. I'm going to write a happy thing, but I'm trying to process something that's really big and heavy. And it just seeps out, it just seeps out in the writing. And so for me, what I'm trying to process, I think right now, I mean, we'll know next year once it is received by the general public. For me, I think I'm just trying to process all emotion, like the big emotions, like joy and sorrow. I think, and community. And my hope is that when we come out of this on the other side, that we will emerge thinking a lot about how to be tender with one another and not taking for granted our relationships, the small ones and the big ones. I've seen maybe 4 to 6 people face to face who are my friends in a year. And I feel so much tenderness for them and how it's going to be like to be with them in a way that I just have taken for granted for so long. I feel so much joy at the idea of being able to sort of emerge from my home and come together with people. I feel so much sorrow for what we've lived through and the way in which, I'm just going to say it, I'm sorry, the way in which the Trump administration they've decimated and destroyed and betrayed the American people. So I'm processing those big, big, big things. And I feel like I am packing them into very small moments, because the people that I've seen over the past year are mostly the people in my house. And so trying to have big emotions in tiny moments with just a few people, is really interesting to me.
That's also such a concise way to draw the image of what we're all experiencing, big emotions with tiny amount of space to communicate them. And that comes with its own like cornucopia of issues and problems as well. So I can understand you got some meat to write with, I think. And there's always this belief, whether you're a part of that belief or not, that theater's therapeutic.
Mm.
And you can say that about writing in general, that it's therapeutic and it's cathartic, and sometimes just putting it on the page is better than ever saying it to that person's face.
Yeah.
Because you can control the conversation and you can like explore it without the risks of that person to person interaction. So I say all of this to say, Tamara, I just want to read everything you write.
Well, I would love for you to do that and then to give me some feedback, because I do like some feedback.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And going a little bit, trailing a little bit back to big emotions, small pieces of time, are you finding yourself writing shorter pieces as well? Or are you trying to tackle things in a longer narrative?
I'm doing both. In 2020, I had the opportunity to write several short pieces, a short monologue for Playmakers Rep, several short 10-minute pieces for Burning Coal, and I'm currently I wrote one for Seed Art Share that's going to be going up this weekend. I wrote one for Artist Soapbox. It was 10 minutes long, and so those 10-minute pieces happened a lot over 2020. They're really easy to write. You can write them really fast, in my experience. You can write them really fast, like in like a week, maybe, or 2 weeks. And because things were changing so fast over the course of 2020, it was also an interesting way to kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what was happening. So the piece that I wrote at the beginning of the lockdown and the piece that I wrote at the end of the lockdown are different, because I was dealing with different things and thinking about what was happening at that moment. And so churning those little shorties out just requires so much less energy, especially when people are really compromised right now and we don't have that. So that's easy. So I guess I would recommend to people that if writing is hard ever, but especially right now, that those short pieces are a lot easier to manage in all the kinds of ways. I am working on a much larger piece right now as well. Honest Pint commissioned me to write a longer theater piece for when we get back into live theater. It's based on a short story about Kafka. And those long pieces, they're awful. They're so hard to write. It's just like turning yourself inside out. It's so much harder to track something over such a number of pages in a way that makes sense to the people who are sitting and watching it and has the kind of structure, the build up, the climax, like managing all of that and the character development. The pieces that I have written that are very long like that, some of them, it took years. And so it's an investment in a much longer chunk of time. And then my experience with playwriting has been, it's never like over. So when you're an actor, you go up, you do your performances, the production's over, you go home. You're not like continuing, unless you're on a like long Broadway run or something like that, where the show just never stops. You just go on forever and ever. But my experience as a playwright is there's never a final draft. There's only like a 7th draft, a 20th draft, a like 30th draft. You just keep revising and revising, and it feels like it's never going to be finished. And so it's been interesting to walk with a piece of theater for so much longer as a playwright than I ever did as an actor.
I relate so hard to that. I wrote, and it was okay. Wait, no, wait. Before I get into this, I want to say, Tamra, why have we not been calling short 10-minute plays shorties the entire time? As soon as you said it, I thought to myself, why isn't this a thing? Like, I'll say 15 minutes or below, shorties. I will say a full 2 act, longies.
That's right.
Why is it? Anyways, you heard it here first, folks.
We're doing
Shorties and
so much.
longies.
We're doing charm bracelets. We're doing shorties. Like we might be changing the world just in this conversation.
This is the episode. This is it when everything changes. Yep. But I do want to kind of touch on revising as a playwright as well. Keyanna wrote a shorty at the beginning of the pandemic, and so that was Marchish, Aprilish, and then in October, I revisited the piece, and within the whatever 7-8 months time frame, I thought to myself, wow, we got to change some stuff, just because everyone, like, okay, I won't speak for everyone. Keyanna's mindset on life, her perception of the way that things are in life has been shifting so fast in this last year. both how I perceive myself, how I perceive the world, and my relationships. Everything has been transformed so quickly. Have you revisited any of your pre-pandemic works and thought to yourself, this is not who I am now?
Hmm. I think that what what really resonates with me about what you just said is that kind of cooling off period that you need to have between what I need to do. Okay. Not you, not anyone, me. The cooling off that I need to have after I've written a piece, and then I need to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, and then look at it again. Because after I've first written something, it's like when your hand is like right in front of your face, and you can't even tell it's your hand because it's so close. There's no perspective. And because as the playwright, you know everything that went into it. You know all of your intentions, all of that, like all of the strata that it's sort of built on, you know that. And you need to forget it a little bit and let it sit for a while so that when the piece comes back, it almost feels like an echo of the person you were when you wrote it. And when it gets to that echo stage, then I can be a lot more objective about it and let the piece speak for itself rather than me trying to speak through the piece and my ego. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying I could do it, but I'm just saying that's what happens more often. And so at that point, after that kind of cooling off piece of time, I can say like, oh, this is unnecessary, even though it was my favorite line ever. It can go away. Or this is unclear because I didn't actually include it. It was just in my mind. It's not on the page. My favorite thing to happen to me as a writer is to maybe what you're talking about is hearing something that I wrote and almost thinking that's maybe somebody else wrote it. And I love that. I love that feeling. And it's like, I can't explain why, but it feels sort of like a friend wrote it. And then I feel I feel happier and I feel warm about that. It's like, oh, my good friend wrote that. Look at that thing that she wrote. And absolutely, what I would write about today on February 16th, 2021, is very different than what I would have written about a year ago, but it's still all the residue of me. And we change, we learn and we do better. But it was me at that point. Did that answer your question? That was a little bit of a roving.
And I loved every minute of it. What are you saying? What I'm what I'm pulling out of this is something I had never really considered, which is you should be fine to grow out of your pieces, out of your writings. And based on how you're describing it, maybe we should all grow out of our writings so that when we can look back on it, it's that same feeling you get when you're flipping through an old photo book, right? Where I remember how I was at that time in my life. I remember being this or that or naive for myself. I won't speak for other people. So being able to reflect exactly how you're saying, right? Reflect with a sense of nostalgia on your writing. And then that does open it up to, ooh, yeah, Keyanna, why did you put this line in there? Oh, Keyanna, honey, no. So yeah, I too would love that sense of feeling like, oh yeah, past Keyanna writing is a warm, fuzzy feeling. Right now, I just feel a lot of embarrassment because I'm like, oh, girl. What are you doing with these commas, girl? But I would love to get to that sort of level that you're describing one day.
I mean, I think that, I guess, so it is painful to look back for me on my writing, be like, well, that was really, really bad. Wow. And people saw it. Oof. But what I hope is that that is a signal that maybe I've gotten better in the meantime, like that I can actually look back. It's like, because I couldn't at the time. I like let that be a thing. You know what I mean? I thought that was the best I could do. And so my hope is that it signifies that I've improved now that I can tell the difference. I don't know. It's so hard to sort through all of this stuff.
Yeah, it is. Especially when you consider we have so many other things going on in our brains outside of our writing. So I say all that to say, hi, viewers and Tamara. Have grace with yourselves. Let's hop into our next question. Okay, no. Yes, no. Keyanna has conflicted emotions. You have been in the world of audio drama since before the pandemic. So I would love to talk about that. But before we hop into it, quick question. Have you written specifically for Zoom yet?
I have written twice specifically for Zoom yet. So I've done that. And then I've also tried to see if people could adapt something that I wrote for the stage to Zoom. And the second piece was not as successful as the first. Like writing directly to Zoom, I wrote that quick monologue. It was like a 5-minute piece at the very beginning of lockdown for Playmakers Rep. And then the second is this 10-minute piece that's going to go up this weekend with Seed Art Share. It's this weekend and next weekend. And in both instances, those we knew from the beginning, this is going to be on Zoom or it's going to be on like a cell phone kind of experience, and write for that. And that was super fun. Yeah.
Oh, yay. I've had so many writer friends say that they hate writing for the virtual stage. I'm glad you had fun.
Yeah, I mean, for me, again, this is just my experience, but writing for a specific medium from the beginning, it gives you so much important information. You understand like these are the limits, these are the opportunities, these are the resources, these are the kind of stories that you might be able to tell best for that certain medium. And it's definitely, as you just mentioned at the beginning, something that I've experienced writing straight to audio. Like, what is going to work best given that particular medium. And then you can aim for it rather than trying to like bend a thing into another shape for that. And so and also, I mean, at this particular point in time, we spend so much of our lives on Zoom, it seems like, that it's sort of like we're all in on the joke of it, like the audience is sitting there watching like, oh, I know that Zoom joke, like I've done that on Zoom before. And so it has a different kind of feel for it as well. Or I've experienced how awful it is to want to reach the screen and touch somebody and not be able to do that. I feel like that. And so it's a different way of identifying with your audience because we've been mucking around on this for like almost a year now.
Mm-hmm. I think I can't speak for other folks, but I'm pretty sure March 14th for me will be the exact 1 year date. So we're
Yeah,
just under it.
I
Yep.
know.
Yep.
Ugh.
But it's fun to kind of unite everybody with the idea of like, oh, we all know that one your cat's in the frame joke
Yes.
now.
Yes.
We've all experienced it. We're all in on the I'm not a cat, the lawyer video.
Right,
Like
right.
we're all here now. So, yeah, I think you're right in a lot of ways because it's such a common experience for folks now. It makes sense for at least some of our art to reflect that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
You're so smart.
Oh, I do not think I'm smart, but I definitely think I will. I have an opinion about things that I will say it. Is that bad? I don't know.
I will take it, especially while you're a guest on this show. So let's talk about the thing that I am so in love with regarding your work, audio drama. I have always been a huge fan of podcasts, and then for some ever reason, it never clicked in my brain that like radio shows used to be a thing, and now we have podcasts. Why can't we just do audio based narrative? So, could you, for myself, but I guess also my audience can sit in on this, why audio drama and what was that transition like?
So why audio drama is also why podcasting. And I started the Artist Soapbox podcasting in 2017, in the fall. Right, I guess my youngest child had not yet turned 2, and I couldn't do live theater, very easily. It was massively stressful and logistically challenging for me. Some people can do it, but for my family, it was really hard. So, and also I couldn't do things like hang out with people. I couldn't go to like parties or get-togethers or theater events or anything like that. And I was super lonely and wanted to stay in the mix. And so, and I was missing that conversation. And so I thought, well, I'll start a podcast because then people can come to like my house and my party, and I can still be in the conversation and feel like I am making connections with people. And also because I feel like we were all doing our own thing, but not talking about it. And so I started the podcast because I had kids, to be completely frank. And then a natural kind of evolution of that was taking the theater that I had made and move it into the audio space. So the first two pieces that I turned into audio dramas, Master Builder and The New Colossus, they were adaptations that I put on stage. Master Builder was written by Ibsen and The New Colossus was written by Chekhov. I put it through my little Tamara, whatever that thing is where you flatten things out and it comes out the other side. I did.
I see it in my brain. I
Yes.
don't know what it's called.
Yeah, it makes me think of those old sort of washing machines where you like squeeze the water out and the cards and the clothes come out on the other side and they're like stiff. So I did that with their stuff and it came out the other side. I put it on stage and then I adapted that to audio. And very similarly, it was because in both instances had a very short rehearsal period, very short performance period because it was recorded and we didn't have to keep doing it over and over again. And I could make everything work for my schedule. I also felt like, hey, I can't get to the theater. I can't participate in theater very easily. I'm sure that I'm not the only person who's experiencing that in the world. And so it became very important to me to open up that accessibility kind of portal to people who might want to enjoy this, but they just can't show up at like a live theater. So that's one piece. The other piece is that I like to listen to things. I'm a much more oral person than I am a visual person. And so I really, really like listening to podcasts. I like listening to audio dramas. It triggers my imagination in a way that I find really fulfilling. There are downsides about it and things I very much miss about live theater. We can talk about, but that's kind of how I got into it. And then I started writing directly to audio, like we were talking about with the Zoom. Instead of trying to translate, I'm like headed right to the audio. And I started working with groups of writers on different audio series. And we're starting from the beginning thinking this is something that people are going to hear. And how can we leverage, again, the opportunities and the challenges of the medium?
I do want to pull out because I think there's such an important lesson in what you just said. So I want to pull out this idea of accessibility. to, especially to theater, and as we are planning to return back to the venue theater, right? Like, I am happy that Tamara has created audio dramas, but also Artist Soapbox and all these wonderful pieces of content for our lovely viewers to consume. Check out the video description. Our links are down below. I'm so happy that those things happened and that I get to be a consumer of your art and of your work. But it came out of theater not being accessible to you, right? Like that's so heartbreaking to me because damn it, Tamara, I want you to do all the stagey things and to feel like you had access to it. So you turned lemons into lemonade, and I'm so happy you did because, woo! Uh, the new Colossus is still like one of my favorite pieces that just exists in the world. But yeah, people with young children, especially, like, we have to make more concessions and make things more accessible to people because being a parent and an artist is very much a thing. And I think like people can really identify with that struggle that you're expressing, Tam. Like,
Mhm.
I do not have children, but I think it is common enough for us to we should have made more leadway on this by now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that is maybe one of the opportunities that's coming out of the pandemic and not being able to do things in the, and I'm doing super air quotes here, traditional ways, because that we've learned other ways and we might want to retain those. And it's it wasn't just for me what I discovered. It wasn't just for me as a writer, director, and all that kind of stuff with audio, but also there were several actors who participated. And I also need to throw in there too the Declaration of Love, which is the anthology that we did during the pandemic. Aurelia Belfield was the co-producer, and you helped on that too. There are actors who can't participate in the usual theater rehearsal process, but they could do audio. I could have an actor come in for a weekend or for a couple of nights, and he or she or they could participate and then get that kind of experience that they've been missing because it was just such a in and out kind of thing. So it was a lot of people who wouldn't normally be able to participate who could jump in on this. And I loved that. Loved it, loved it.
You loved it. I love it. It's a good time. Oh gosh. Okay. So we do have a couple of minutes to tackle the last big question I had for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What do we think 2021 is going to look like for writers? What type of content do we think is going to be trending? What type of mediums do we think we are leaning towards? I'm asking you for your theater predictions if you have any.
Okay. I'm really curious to see how much writing is going to happen in 2021 and how much of that time is going to be filled with production, because I feel like there might be a backlog of writing. I mean, I know for me, I have a lot of stuff in the hopper and I need to get into a studio or I need to get into a theater so that can be made. So what I'm looking at is, fingers crossed, in the fall when it is safe, oh please, I want everyone to get in the same room together and like record all my stuff and rehearse all my stuff and let's make a thing. I'm doing that. That is my focus. So I will write up until that point, but really my goal in 2021 is to produce the stuff that was generated by me during and during my collaborators during 2020. So I wonder how that will be for other writers if they're kind of like stepping back so that things can be moved into production. As far as content, I don't know. I mean, we need to be able to process this. I'm not sure, at least the writers that I know are wanting to process it directly, straight on. Like, let's write a play about being stuck in an apartment and not being able to leave the apartment. Maybe people are writing that, but I don't know if I want to see that as an audience member because I just lived it. So I think my guess is that a lot of writers are kind of coming at it sort of at a slant and engaging with those ideas, but indirectly. And I think maybe writers will be thinking a lot about the opposite experience that we just lived in. So a lot more like being together and having celebrations and feeling joy and like really leaning into, again, going back to earlier in our conversation, how to be tender with each other, how to be live with each other, how to say all the things that you weren't able to say to people during this past year, how to live moving forward. I feel like there's going to be a lot of like living out loud kind of stuff. But I don't know. I want to see. I'm excited to find out.
I adore that you said people are going to attack the isolation that has been our last year at a slanted angle or indirectly. I love that because I literally just finished writing a piece this weekend about a person trapped in their apartment. So I'm like, oh, should I have gone metaphorically? Should I have tried to cover this with a disguise of some sort? Nope. It's a person in an apartment.
I love that because the way that you can do it will be different than the way that other people will do it. And I think if that's a play you got to write that play. And someone will be there to enjoy it. And more importantly, you needed to write it and like figure out what it means. You know what I mean? As we were talking about earlier. So it is not a prescription that people do not like. I'm not saying don't write about the pandemic because that would be bad. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying write your thing. You got to write, and there will be people who will enjoy it and it will resonate with them.
Can I get that as an inspirational poster on my wall? Write the thing you gotta write.
Who else is going to write it? Like only you can write the thing you need to write, you want to write, and the way that you can do it. I feel so strongly about that. We do not need to tie ourselves into knots trying to please some sort of fictional audience out there. Write what you need to write in the way that you can write it, and the people will enjoy it. So some people out there will enjoy it because you do. Yeah.
We just had a question pop into the chat that I would love to get your thoughts on. This comes from Eric. Hi, Eric. With all the backlog, do you think it will be harder for new folks to get produced? The question goes on, but I would love to just kind of get like, yeah, newbies with their shorties, are they going to get produced?
I think so. First of all, I think shorties are always easier. They're easier for theater companies to produce, for audio producers to make, because it's fewer resources, and they can build festivals around them. And there are a lot of examples of that. So if you want to get produced more easily, having the little shorties available is a good idea. There's always self-production. So you want to produce your stuff, then that will make it easier for you to get your work out there, or find a collaborator to help with some of the things that you don't know how to do. Maybe you're not a director, maybe you're just a writer, maybe you're not a producer, and bring those people onto your team and put your work out there into the world. I don't know. I feel like one of my hope is, I guess, one of the things that comes out of this is just a recognition of how important our local community is. And so my hope is that companies, and I think this is happening here in the Triangle now even more, people are looking to the writers and the storytellers in their community and figuring out how to give them a platform for the community. So I hope that what will happen is that local theaters will invest in local writers. And so it won't be as difficult for new and emerging playwrights to put their stuff out into their local world.
Wow, this is that moment in the episode, everyone, if you've been following along with T&D, where I start to get all gushy and fangirly over whoever it is that I'm speaking to today. Because we're winding down, and I have so deeply enjoyed this conversation about your process and how you view writing, and no one can write what you want to write but you. If that's not a t-shirt, I don't know what is. But I would love to take these last couple of minutes to ask, because I know you have so many things on the docket right now. So what are you working on? What collaborations do you have coming up? What are the next moves for Tamara?
Mm-hmm. I mentioned a couple of them, and I will mention them again. Thank you for this opportunity. Artist Soapbox is a podcast that lives forever on the internet and also on all the podcast platforms. So people can hear back episodes. They can hear all of the audio dramas that we've talked about. Most recently was the Declaration of Love audio anthology. That was made by a lot of different artists here. I'm so grateful. And then the festival of Zoom written for Zoom plays is happening this weekend with Seed Art Share. It's this weekend and next weekend in February. It's 6 10-minute plays. And so those are coming up. And as I mentioned, I'm working with Honest Pint, which is a theater company here, on a new piece. And we're asking for people to send in their experiences with their childhood doll. And we loved getting yours, Keyanna. So beautiful. So if people want to know more about that, they can go to artistsoapbox.org. It's up there. People can send in their thoughts about their lovies from childhood. And I'm hoping that later in this year, the audio serials that I'm working on, Jesus Pancake with Mara, Juliana, and Katie, and The Glacier Hotel with Alan and Ian, that those will move into production. So people are just going to need to wait for them to come out once we can get together.
Whew, yes. Go ahead and just follow all the things, because Tamara has wonderful work. So if you have not already checked out Artist Soapbox, please do. There are so many. I feel like we just said this and we've been saying this like for the last hour, but there's so many great works. Also the interviews, y'all, fire. And if you are a triangle-based artist, I guarantee as you are scrolling through the archive, you're gonna see names that you recognize. Like it was, anyways, I have a good time just kind of scrolling through and be like, ooh, know her, know him, ooh. So I just love being able to have insights to other artists, and that's exactly what Tamara is providing with her podcast. So yes to all of that. And now is the time, everyone, where I remind you how you can support Theaters Not Dead. We have a coffee channel, so you can follow us at coffee.com, Not Dead with Keyanna. I deeply enjoy this new little feature they have where I can put it on my video. So if you don't like me spelling things at you, just look right here. Bam. We also have a merch shop, Teespring. Its link is in the description. So if you want a hoodie that says, "Hey friends," and that, please read it in my voice. That's kind of the joke. But we have hoodies, socks, mugs, t-shirts, merch all the time. We want to hear from you. Yes, you, viewers. How has your transition into virtual theater been going? Have you transitioned into virtual theater? If so, why? If not, why? You can email us your stories at notdeadwithkey@gmail.com. Again, all this information is in the description. Follow us on social media. That's in the description too, but I'm not going to list those things at your faces right now. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much, Tam. So good. So good. This has been Theater's Not Dead. I'm Keyanna, reminding everybody at home, y'all, theater's like totally not dead. See you next time.